If someone had told me a year ago that this weekend would change everything between me and Ryan, I probably would have laughed it off and then spent an hour overthinking it in secret. I zipped my duffel bag shut and glanced around my messy room, heart thudding louder than it should have. The team's annual weekend retreat was supposed to be about bonding, training, and blowing off steam before playoffs. Nothing more. Definitely nothing dangerous like admitting to myself how badly I wanted something I couldn't have, especially not when it came to Ryan. He'd been my closest friend since freshman year, a whirlwind of loud laughter, stupid jokes, and maddening confidence. The kind of guy who made everyone feel seen, even if you were just another body on the bench. And now, somehow, he was my roommate for the whole trip. I ran a hand through my hair, shaking off the nerves. No big deal. It wasn't like sharing. A cabin meant anything. We'd shared hotel rooms before on away games, crashed on each other's couches, fallen asleep half drunk after too many rounds of Mario Kart. It was normal. Familiar. Only it hadn't felt normal lately. Lately, every stupid glance Ryan shot me across the gym stuck longer than it should have. Every offhanded shove, every casual arm slung around my shoulders, every time he called me bro with that easy grin, like he didn't have a damn clue what it did to me. I sighed and slung my bag over my shoulder. My phone buzzed with a text. Ryan. You ready or what? Don't make me come up there and drag your ass out. I smiled despite myself, my thumb hovering over the keyboard longer than necessary before I typed back something snarky. Me. Chill, princess. I'm on my way. Outside, the campus parking lot buzzed with the chaotic energy of 20 college guys cramming into cars and arguing over snacks and speakers. The late afternoon sun turned the pavement into a shimmering mirror, and the heavy heat clung to my skin, adding to the low thrum of anticipation curling in my gut. Ryan spotted me instantly, waving me over with both arms like a dork. He was wearing that worn-out hoodie I secretly loved, the one stretched loose around the collar, sleeves pushed up to show strong forearms I should not have been noticing. Our eyes met, and for half a second, half a heartbeat, something hung in the air between us. Weightless, dangerous. I blinked first. Of course I did. About time, slowpoke, Ryan teased, clapping me hard on the back. His touch lingered, warm and easy, before he steered me toward the van. Hope you're ready to be stuck with me all weekend, I forced a laugh, shoving him playfully, if he only knew. By the time we hit the highway, the van was packed with the usual chaos, shouting, bad music, someone throwing sunflower seeds at the back of my head. I grinned, shaking my head as I sank lower into my seat. Ryan was driving, one hand casually draped over the steering wheel, sunglasses sliding down his nose. He sang off-key to whatever terrible pop song was blasting, shooting me exaggerated winks every time he hit a particularly awful note. This was us. It had always been like this. Comfortable, easy. We'd met our first week of college tryouts, both pretending we weren't terrified of screwing up. Ryan had been the first guy to crack a joke when the coach barked at us, and the first to offer me a fist bump after I fumbled my first drill. Since then, we'd been inseparable. Teammates. Roommates for 2 seasons, late-night fast food runs, endless trash talk over video games. He was the first person I called when life fell apart, and the first to show up without needing an explanation. The van hit a pothole and jolted violently. I caught myself grabbing the edge of my seat just as Ryan threw out a hand, instinctively, bracing across my chest. It wasn't necessary. We weren't going that fast. But he did it anyway, like it was natural. His hand lingered a beat longer than it should have. "You good, princess?" he teased, his mouth twitching into a grin as he pulled his hand back, knuckles brushing against my hoodie. "Better than your driving skills," I muttered, hoping he couldn't hear the slight crack in my voice. He just laughed, that easy open sound that always hit me somewhere soft. The drive blurred into miles of sun-baked fields and terrible playlists. At some point, Ryan snagged a bag of gummy bears from the floor and started throwing them at my mouth, demanding I catch them like a real athlete. I missed half of them, mostly because he was laughing too hard to aim properly. By the time we pulled up to the lakeside cabins, my cheeks hurt from smiling. The place was beautiful in that rugged, falling-apart kind of way. 2 small cabins tucked against the trees, a private dock stretching out over glittering water. It smelled like pine and sunscreen, and something unspoken buzzing under my skin. Coach barked out sleeping arrangements. I caught the tail end. Ryan and me, cabin 2. Figures. Ryan tossed an arm around my shoulders, steering me toward our assigned cabin like he owned the place, and maybe owned me a little bit without even knowing it. Inside, the cabin was tiny. 2 narrow bunks, 1 dusty window, and about 2 feet of floor space. Cozy wasn't even the word. Ryan dropped his bag onto one bed and flopped down dramatically. "Called it?" he said, grinning up at me like a kid. I raised an eyebrow. Wow, so fair. He patted the mattress beside him. "Plenty of room if you want to cuddle." I snorted, trying to ignore the way my stomach did a traitorous little flip. "In your dreams, lover boy," he winked, completely unfazed. "Every damn night." It was a joke. Of course it was. But for half a second the air between us crackled, sharp and uncertain. I swallowed and turned away, pretending to fuss with my bag. That's when I noticed the sleeping bag situation. 1 bag. Somehow, between all the packing chaos and car jamming, only 1 sleeping bag had made it into our stuff. And it was already laid out on the lower bunk, unmistakably for 2. Perfect, Ryan. Followed my gaze and burst out laughing. "Guess we're getting real cozy this weekend, huh?" I forced a laugh too, but my hands were clammy as I shoved my duffel into the corner. "Don't worry," Ryan said, voice dropping into something low and mock-soothing. "I'll keep my hands to myself." The worst part was, I didn't want him to. Later, when he tossed me a cold soda from the cooler and kicked his sneakers off, sprawling across the bed like he owned every inch of the place, and maybe a few pieces of me, I realized something dangerous. I wasn't sure how much longer I could pretend. The sun dipped low behind the trees, setting the lake on fire with gold and orange. Most of the guys were already out there, shouting and wrestling on the dock, half of them daring each other to jump into the freezing water. Ryan kicked back on the bunk, tossing a tennis ball against the ceiling and catching it with lazy precision. "You coming or what?" I shook my head, pretending to fuss with my hoodie. "Nah, you go. I'm good." Truth was, my chest felt too tight, like if I went out. There, stood next to him in the golden light, saw him soaking wet and laughing. I might actually combust. Ryan sat up, squinting at me. "You sure? Might be the last nice night before the storm hits." At the word storm, I glanced out the window. Distant clouds were already stacking up on the horizon, thick, gray, ominous. "Yeah, I'm sure," I said, forcing a smile. Ryan studied me for a second longer than necessary, then nodded, grabbing a hoodie before heading out. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving me in the sudden silence. I let out a slow breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and flopped onto the bunk, staring at the ceiling. What was I doing? Ryan was my best friend, straight, untouchable. Dreaming about anything more was like playing with fire, except I was the idiot practically begging to get burned. Thunder rumbled in the distance, low and steady like a warning. It hit faster than anyone expected. 1 minute, the guys were still fooling around on the dock. The next, the wind picked up, whipping the lake into choppy waves. The first crack of lightning sent everyone sprinting back toward the cabins, yelling and slipping in the mud. I was at the door before Ryan even got halfway up the hill, my heart punching my ribs. He was soaked to the bone, hoodie plastered to his skin, hair dripping into his eyes. But he was laughing. Of course he was. Like getting caught in a thunderstorm was the greatest thing that had ever happened. I shoved the door open wider as he stumbled in, dragging a gust of cold, wet air with him. Jesus, Rye, I muttered, grabbing a towel from my bag and tossing it at him. He caught it one-handed, flashing me a grin that made my stomach flip. Missed you too, sweetheart. He stripped off the soaked hoodie without hesitation, baring a lean chest and arms dusted with water and muscle. I looked away so fast I almost gave myself whiplash. The rain pounded harder outside, making the cabin feel smaller, closer, like the walls were breathing. Ryan ruffled his hair with the towel, then flopped onto the lower bunk, the only real bed, now with a groan. "Well," he said, kicking off his wet sneakers. "Looks like we're stuck here." He wasn't wrong. The storm didn't just pass, it settled in, heavy and unrelenting. Thunder shook the ground. The lights flickered once, twice, then held steady. I sat awkwardly on the edge of the other bunk, trying not to look at him, trying not to think about the fact that we were trapped together, that there was only one sleeping bag, and that every rational part of me was screaming danger while the rest of me just wanted. "You're not seriously going to sit over there all night like some Victorian maiden," Ryan teased, tossing the towel onto the floor. I shot him a look. "Watch me." He smirked and patted the space beside him. "Come on, you're going to make me sleep alone on couples retreat weekend?" I laughed, an ugly, strangled sound, and before I could think better of it, I swung my legs over and slid down onto the bunk next to him. Too close. Not close enough. The sleeping bag was zipped halfway open, barely enough for two people, unless you didn't mind touching. Ryan tugged it up casually, trapping the heat and the unbearable tension between us. "See? Not so bad," he said, voice low, almost a whisper. The storm raged outside, but inside it was warm and quiet. Every breath, a weight between us. I lay stiffly on my side, hyper-aware of every inch between us, and of every point where we almost touched. His knee brushed mine under the sleeping bag, casual, unconscious. His arm flopped lazily across the pillow inches from my face. I could smell him. Fresh rain and something earthy, something just him. It made my heart hammer and my throat tighten painfully. He sighed, shifting a little closer without thinking. His warmth bled into me, his presence filling the small space until it felt like there was no air left to breathe. "You're tense," Ryan murmured, voice drowsy but sharp enough to catch. "You okay?" I made a non-committal noise, squeezing my eyes. "Shut! I was not okay. Not even close." "You're shaking," he said after a beat, his voice softening. I felt his hand, hesitant at first, brush against my arm. Just a touch. A grounding point. "Is it the storm?" "Yeah, sure. The storm." I nodded, because it was easier than the truth. His fingers lingered, tracing a slow, thoughtless line along my forearm. Every nerve ending in my body lit up like a live wire. I bit the inside of my cheek, willing myself not to react. "You're always like this when you're scared," he said, almost fondly. "Remember that one time freshman year? The tornado warning?" I huffed out a breath that was half laugh, half desperate plea. "Yeah, you made me sit in the hallway for like 3 hours. You fell asleep on my shoulder," he said, voice dipping lower. Snored like a dying walrus. I swatted at him weakly, but he caught my wrist, laughing, and didn't let go. For a second, neither of us moved. His thumb brushed lightly over my pulse. Slow, deliberate. My heart stuttered, and I knew I couldn't do this anymore, not pretend, not smile through it, not shove it down and hope it suffocated quietly. "I'm not scared of the storm," I whispered. The words hung between us, suspended and crackling like the lightning outside. Ryan's hand tightened around mine almost imperceptibly. His breathing changed, shallower, quicker. I turned my head on. The pillow, finally looking at him. His eyes were wide, searching. He wasn't laughing anymore. He looked lost, like he was waiting for me to throw him a line. I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry. Every instinct screamed at me to shut up, to backtrack, to joke it off. Instead, I whispered, "I'm scared of something else." Ryan didn't move, didn't blink. Scared of what? His voice was raw, barely a sound. I licked my lips. Of messing this up, of ruining everything. He was so close I could see the freckles scattered across his nose. So close I could feel the tremble in his fingers still wrapped around my wrist. "Messing what up?" he asked, like he genuinely didn't know. I laughed then, a broken, aching thing. Us. This. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, gathering every scrap of courage I had left. "I feel something, Ryan. I've felt it for a long time, and it's not just friendship anymore." Silence. It slammed into me harder than any thunderclap. I waited for him to pull away, to laugh, to say it was nothing, that I was imagining it all. Instead, I felt him shift closer, so close now that I could feel the brush of his breath against my cheek. "I know," he said hoarsely. My eyes snapped open. "You?" I breathed. "I know," he said again, squeezing my hand like it hurt to say it. "I've been trying to pretend it's not there, that it's just nothing, but it's not." His forehead pressed against mine, and my entire body went still. "I don't know what this means," he whispered. "I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but when I'm around you, it's different." He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes, and what I saw there made my heart shatter and heal all at once. Fear, longing, hope. "I think about you all the time," he admitted, voice breaking on the edges. "Not the way I'm supposed to, not the way I should." I was shaking again, but it wasn't from fear this time. "Me too," I said. For a second, neither of us moved. The air was thick and heavy and electric. Then, slowly, hesitantly, he lifted a hand and cupped my jaw, his thumb brushing the corner of my mouth. "Can I?" he asked, voice cracking with uncertainty. I didn't trust myself to speak. I just nodded. He leaned in, so painfully slow it almost killed me. Our noses bumped awkwardly, and we both let out a shaky laugh. Nervous, vulnerable, us. Then, his lips brushed mine. It wasn't perfect, it was clumsy and tentative and trembling, but it was real, and it was everything. I made a small, broken sound in the back of my throat and pressed closer, finally letting go of the fear, the doubt, the years of wanting and not daring to hope. His arms came around me, pulling me flush against him under the sleeping bag. His body was warm and solid and right. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine again, breathing hard. "This is crazy," he whispered, smiling a little. "Yeah," I whispered back, grinning helplessly. "And you're sure you're Not scared of the storm?" I laughed, tears prickling my eyes. "Not even a little." He brushed his thumb over my cheekbone, gentle and reverent. "Good, 'cause I'm pretty sure the real danger's in here." I snorted. "You're such a dork." He grinned, wide and unguarded, and kissed me again, deeper this time, surer. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, in that tiny cabin, tucked beneath a threadbare sleeping bag, everything finally made sense. We weren't running anymore. We were right where we were supposed to be, together. We lay there for a long time, tangled up in each other under the thin sleeping bag, the storm fading to a low rumble in the distance. It felt surreal, like the world outside had been washed clean, leaving just the two of us in this small, quiet space. Ryan's thumb traced lazy circles on the back of my hand. Every little movement, every small touch, sent a ripple of warmth through me. Neither of us said anything for a while. We didn't need to. The air between us was different now, thicker, but easier at the same time, Like a knot in my chest had finally come undone. "You realize," Ryan said eventually, his voice low and teasing, "you're still the little freshman who snored on my shoulder. Nothing's really changed." I lifted my head just enough to raise an eyebrow at him. "Nothing? We just confessed feelings. We've been repressing for like years, and you're worried about my snoring?" He grinned, his eyes sparkling with something lighter than anything I'd seen there before. "Priorities, man." I nudged him with my foot under the blanket, and he caught it, trapping it against his calf. A new kind of closeness sparked between us, casual but intimate, like we were still figuring out all the ways we could touch each other now. "I can't believe you actually kissed me," I said, half laughing, half shaky. Ryan propped himself up on his elbow, looking down at me with a soft, crooked smile. "Pretty sure you kissed me back. Aggressively, might I add." "Hey," I said, mock-offended. "I was enthusiastic, not aggressive." He laughed, and the sound wrapped around me like a blanket. God, I could get addicted to this. His laughter faded into something softer, something thoughtful. He brushed a strand of hair away from my forehead, his fingers lingering. "So, what now?" he asked quietly. "I mean, you and me, after tonight." The weight of the question settled between us. Real. Important. I sat up a little, pulling the sleeping bag tighter around us. "I don't know," I admitted. "I mean, we're still teammates, still best friends, but I want more than that. I'm done pretending I don't." Ryan nodded slowly, his fingers tracing the seam of the sleeping bag absent-mindedly. "Yeah, me too." He looked up at me then, and the fear was still there, tucked behind his smile. But there was something stronger now, too. Determination. "It's not going to be simple," he said. "People are going to notice if we start acting different. And I'm not exactly an expert at this relationship stuff." I squeezed his hand under the blanket. "We'll figure it out. Together." He smiled, small, real. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," I said, leaning my forehead against his. "But it's worth it." He closed his eyes for a second, like he was soaking in the words. Then he pressed a kiss to the corner of my mouth. Light, tentative, but full of promise. "I'm in," he whispered. "Whatever this is, I'm all in." A lump formed in my throat, and I couldn't stop the grin that broke across my face. "Good," I said, "because you're stuck with me now." Ryan chuckled, wrapping an arm around my waist and pulling me closer. "Yeah, well, I guess if I survived your snoring for 4 years, I can survive dating you." I laughed, swatting his chest half-heartedly before settling against him, my heart so full it felt like it might burst. The storm outside had moved on, leaving the night calm and fresh. Inside our little cabin, something new had taken root. Fragile, but strong, like the first green shoots after a long winter. We lay there in the quiet, sharing whispered jokes and sleepy kisses. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was just happy. And I had a feeling. This was only the beginning. The next morning, the world outside the cabin looked different, cleaner, brighter. Sunlight spilled through the half-broken window, throwing soft, golden patterns across the worn wooden floor. The storm had passed completely, leaving behind only the sharp scent of rain and the distant sound of dripping trees. Ryan stirred beside me, his hair a mess, his face peaceful in a way I wasn't used to seeing. Normally, he was all restless energy and cocky smiles, but right now, he just looked happy. I watched him for a moment, memorizing the small things, the slow rise and fall of his chest, the faint curve of his mouth, the way his fingers had somehow found mine again in his sleep. Something inside me tightened and loosened at the same time. I wanted this. Every morning, every messy, imperfect second, Ryan's eyes blinked open, still heavy with sleep, and he smiled when he saw me watching him. "Mornin'," he said, his voice rough and low. "Morning," I whispered back, squeezing his fingers gently. We lay there in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after all the important things have already been said. There were still a million conversations ahead of us, about our team, about the people in our lives, about what the hell we were even calling this thing between us. But right now, none of that mattered. Right now, it was just him and me. Eventually, we sat up, reluctantly pulling ourselves from the cocoon we'd made under the sleeping bag. I stretched, wincing at the stiffness in my back, and Ryan chuckled. "You're getting old," he teased, bumping his shoulder against mine. I rolled my eyes. "You're 1 year older than me, Grandpa." He laughed, that wide, easy grin that I'd always loved, but now it felt like it belonged to me in a way it hadn't before. As we packed up our stuff, the morning sun climbing higher, Ryan paused, holding something in his hand. It was the tiny, beat-up keychain we'd found years ago after one of our first away games together, an old, scratched-up compass that barely worked, but for some reason, we'd kept it as a joke. "To find our way back when we get lost," Ryan had said back then, grinning like an idiot. Now he turned it over in his fingers, looking almost shy. "You remember this?" he asked. "Of course," I said, smiling. He hesitated, then closed my fingers around it, his hand lingering on mine. "Keep it," he said softly. "You know, for whenever we need to find our way again." I swallowed hard, feeling that stupid lump return to my throat. "I'll keep it safe," I said, my voice rough. He grinned, a little more sheepish now. "Besides, if I let you hold on to it, you have to stick around." "Was already planning on it," I said, nudging him gently. "You're stuck with me, remember?" Ryan laughed under his breath, then leaned in and pressed a kiss to my temple, a small, quiet promise. We walked out of the cabin together, our duffel bags slung over our shoulders, the morning air crisp and clean around us. At some point, without even thinking about it, Ryan laced his fingers through mine, no hesitation, no looking around to see if anyone was watching. Just us, hand in hand, starting something new. As we made our way down the muddy trail back toward the world we'd left behind, I glanced over at him. He caught me looking and grinned, squeezing my hand. "Hey," he said, voice light. "We're gonna be okay, right?" I smiled back, feeling it all the way down to my bones. "Yeah," I said. "We're gonna be more than okay." The trees opened up ahead of us, sunlight flooding the path, and together, step by step, we walked forward into whatever came next.